All right. Welcome, everybody, and welcome back, Tracy, to the channel. And, Tracy is the man whose business to creates these amazing brushes I'm just absolutely love. You guys know that. You know that I use a lot of his brushes. And in terms of my Sumi painting, I use the brushes exclusively because not only I figure if it's not broke, why fix it? I always get great responses from the brush. Tracy's a friend, and I do believe in supporting small businesses and bespoke businesses. And I'm really making it a mission in these days is to really continue to support small and artists and people who have a vision and they spend a lot of time putting a lot of energy into their vision. It takes a lot for him to make these brushes. And so I want to celebrate that. I know many of you already have his brushes. Many of you have sat looking and thinking about which brush you want. And so I want to start off by saying you can always reach out to Tracy. He's very good at responding and helping you understand what brush you may need for your needs. Maybe you're not using Sumi. Maybe you are not on the gel plate. Maybe you do watercolor. We have brushes for those. He has brushes for all different types of media. So I want to start off by saying that I think there's also a page on the website that breaks down a lot of the brushes that I use and commonly use. So for those of you who follow my style of art, there's a lot of explanations there for the kind of brushes I'm using. So that might be a starting point, a jump off point for you all. But we're here today to not only, celebrate Tracy's company, but to share, it's a time of year where we have our, what our Black Fridays and Cyber Mondays and what have you. So we have a special that Tracy's offering out, and he'll tell you all about it. So we just thought it was a good time to come in and connect and get ready for the gift giving season as well. And sometimes it includes giving yourself a gift. So Tracy, welcome as always. Please, introduce yourself and talk about what you do.
Robin, thank you so much. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. You made my day, and we're pretty much to wrap up at this point, I think. Covered everything I need to. No, I'm just joking, of course. But first, thank you for the opportunity to get to chat with you on air. And it's always a lot of fun when we've done this before. And
It is.
I've always enjoyed your company and continue to do so. So you're such a warm and generous person. Um, Well, first, let me address a couple of points and we can just take it from there. You mentioned there is a page on my website. It's called Robin's Favorite Brushes. And that there's actually two different pages, and they cover both your previous book as well as the brushes that you noted on that. And I have references to, I think, the page numbers and the images shown on your earlier book for doing that. And before we get too far, I understand that you have another two books out, if I have that correctly. And share a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, and it's funny because even in this project, guys, Tracy and I collaborated behind the scenes because many of his brushes I've used exclusively in the book because I honestly use these brushes all the time for so many things. And even when I'm applying ink on my stamps, I'm using the brushes. When I'm working to move paint around on the gel plate, I'm using his brushes. So and the brushes are so beautiful. So the first one is the Asian series. And you can see right there on the front, there's a flat lay that I did that had all his brushes, and they're just beautiful. They're works of art as well as, very utilitarian. And that one comes in the box set, this Asian box set, which also has stencils in it, and it has stamps. And I'll do while we're you can hardly see them, but while we're kind of playing down here with ink and brush, I'll um I'll show you the some of the stamps. We'll play around with stamping, but these are the two that are in that set. So
Oh,
that's the Asian set. And then real quickly, we have the European set, same thing. And like in the even when I'm demoing and stuff like that, that brush right there is a perfect brush to use. Which one is that? I think that's this long one. I think it's this one. that I was using, which is, which one is this? Crazy tape, Tracy. I think it's, uh,
It looks like, I'm guessing it's either Russian sable or brown synthetic from the tip of it, and the size is a medium.
yeah, I love this one. They really do nicely, and I'll show when I brush over the stencils. But anyway, so that's the European, and in there are um these are some of the stamps and images and the
Cool.
stencils. So yeah, this has been a labor of love. It's been about 18 months. This is another one of Schiffer projects, and I call it a workshop in a box because basically everything you need to do, including a storyline. There's a journal pages in there where I have a protagonist in here and her faithful familiar. And then in the back of the book, there's a little pull out. I won't pull it out because it's a surprise, but just a nod to Griffin and Sabine. That sort of journey and exploring things. So it's just as, full of images and inspiration as my book was. And so yeah, so that's what's new for me. And I feel like, I've definitely taken you along in this process as I've worked on this project, and I'm always thankful for what you do.
Well, thank you so much. So am I. It looks like months and months and months of work to get
It
that
was
put
18
together.
months before we even
Wow,
got it to release. Yeah.
that's extraordinary. Yeah, the amount of work that goes into this stuff, I think most people that are consumers and that buy the things and help support us don't have a really good idea of the
No
amount of work
clue
it
what.
takes to do these things.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't just come up. And I'm wearing, this is something that I had a long time ago. I don't have any more of them, but this is a sweatshirt that I made, and this is done with your brushes.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I had it made
Wow.
into a garment, but yeah, it's staining and then the brushes. So I thought it was appropriate to wear this today.
Well, thank you. That's pretty cool. I
Yeah,
wondered about that because it's such a unique, you just never see that type of thing. And
yeah,
it looks really nice too. It has a nice sense of bilateral symmetry to it.
yeah.
And it's not the same on both sides, but it balances very, very nicely.
Right, exactly. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I am honored. And this all goes back, of course, to my cousin. My cousin Keith is the founder of Lebenzon Paintbrushes.
Yes.
And just a little bit of history. He and I were very good friends when I was just starting in college. I moved from Seattle to Portland and then went to a community college for 2 years and then went to a university where it turned out to be 8 more years. And I became what I refer to myself as a knowledge junkie. I love to learn. And it's a thing that continues to this day. And after a while, you don't need to be in classrooms so much. After like 6 years or so, they just don't put you through classes so much, but you're obligated to put out much higher quality and much higher volume of work. I
Yeah, yeah,
remember in my graduate era, I was turning out like literally the equivalent of a novel every term, like 300
yeah.
plus pages. And not only
I
that, but a
remember those
novel,
days.
yeah, and it wasn't just that. It was a novel that was intended to be read by a senior college professor. And so it really put the responsibility to do a very high quality
Right.
amount of work, or
I
at least
always say that I put my hand up proudly that I have an abandoned PhD because I was in my PhD program and it was all hard history. I was enjoying it. And you know how you sit through those classes and they really don't
sure.
ask much of you. And then all of a sudden, you have to produce this full, thesis project. And I started down it. And then after a while, I just thought, I'm not interested in spending this amount of time to write on what it was that I was learning. You know what I mean? I was like you. I just wanted to learn it. And then I was like, I don't want to do this. But anyhow, so I know it. I got my hand up on that one.
I understand that. I studied art history myself for 5 years. And at one time, I was actually pursuing 5 undergraduate degrees at the same time. And even I realized that was just
God,
nuts to do.
that's crazy.
I never cared about the degrees per se.
Me either.
It's an inevitable outcome, but I always enjoyed learning, and
Yeah.
it's something that I carry with me to this day. So,
Yeah, I should too.
but anyway, that
So
takes me back to what Keith did. Keith also had I think it was a Master of Fine Arts, and he loved to learn as well.
yeah.
And I was barely more than a teenager at that point. We hung out together a lot in his studio. He was a potter before he became a brush maker, and he migrated to brush making kind of as an accident. I should have thought about the props, but a long version told shortly. I don't have any in pieces right here, but I remember he tells me the story about when he held up a piece of bamboo, and when he did brush making, he did not calligraphy stuff, but he liked to do cylindrical patterns on his pots. And he said one day he held up a piece of bamboo and he put, at that point, it was just a piece of cotton on the top of it. And went, and that literally transformed
I
his
created a
life.
brush.
And
Yeah.
well, not just any brush, but a brush that the basic ergonomic comfort of bamboo is unmatched
Right.
any place.
Bamboo is amazing.
It
Yeah.
feels so good in the hand.
Yeah.
Just with the natural element, it's got a minor texture to it. He used a bamboo cane, which is what I just showed you. That's this one. And then he also used a type of bamboo called
Let's use
wangi
this
or
one.
wongi bamboo. There's different ways of
Yeah.
pronouncing it. And this is way harder to make than the cane. The cane comes with a natural hole in it. This, as you see, is curved. So you have to get rid of the curve, then you have to drill into it very carefully. It's a
Right.
conversation on itself. And then he also used, he called these guns. This is called bamboo rhizome. So literally, the wangi bamboo, if you can see, let's go this side, you can see the holes in this. I'll put it closer to the camera. And
Right.
this is where the wangi would have grown out of. This is the wangi is the
Oh,
root that starts over in the neighbor's yard on this side
uh-huh.
and ends up
Yeah.
in the neighbor's yard on the other side. So, and then
Oh.
the cane is what comes out of there. And
So let
so
me ask you, because I met Keith decades ago. Literally, it's been decades. I was thinking today that it was before my even youngest was born, and she's 24 now. So the first thing I met him is at the New York show, the Javits Center. I want to say that's where I met him first, or it might have been the craft show in Baltimore. But whatever it was, I remember the first time I met him and I saw his brushes and used them. And most of you know this is the first brush I ever bought from Keith. And this thing fits in my hand. Like I guard this with my life. You can see how that brush just hangs on the knuckle area is perfect. It curves back down over my fingers. It is so comfortable to use and it's just beautiful. And all the brushes, even though this was a little straighter, they all have, because bamboo has this groove right there, that little groove right there. And when you position your knuckle just rests right in that little groove. So no matter where along the brush you want to hold it, you'll always find that simpatico spot. So even when you get the brushes, play with them and you'll start feeling in your hand where they lay nicely. This was the second one that I got from him. I think I got it the next year at one of the shows because I was a working artist with young kids that, and back then, I mean, literally it was 30 years ago. I was just thinking about that today. It had to be 28 at least. And back then I purchased this brush for like 70 something dollars, $80 or something. Like I know it's more now. But
not
back
much more.
then, huh?
Not much more.
Okay, well, that's good. You've really held the prices, which is beautiful. But when I got this, it was just like I felt like I spent my life savings. No, but it was so beautiful that I went back and got another one. And I constantly use these brushes. I love them. And since finding Tracy again a number of years ago through my good friend Patty, who saw me working those brushes, and I said, I haven't been able to find them because I was looking over the years for Keith. I was trying to find them. And then she found you and reached out to you, Patty Tolly Parrish. And then
Right.
in the middle of the night, she texts me and says, Robin, I found his cousin Tracy, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God, it was great. So that was a wonderful reconnection back with you. But since you're talking about the bamboo, one of the things you told me a while ago when we were chatting that I found very interesting, and I think our audience will find interesting. And I'm going to go, just to let everybody know, I'm going to go down to the table and just do some brushwork with these so you can sort of see the differences. And then Tracy can kind of talk about why a silver fox or a Russian sable or, a synthetic, like why it operates the way it does. But can you tell people how because you basically wild harvest all the bamboo yourself and it was just phenomenal what you were telling me how you harvest the bamboo. So I think that's something to share.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's one of the many parts that goes into brush making that is unsung. Probably good idea that it is, but But I still do it. I like to stock up. It's one of the tricks that I've learned a long time ago. Is it's better to have it and not need it than the other way around, especially because bamboo has to sit for about a year between the time that I acquire it and when I actually start working with it. You don't want to use it when it's too green because it doesn't behave properly and it can get too old to work with, like any natural material. It gets brittle as it gets older. Anyway, primarily I put out ads in my area, the Seattle area, for Craigslist, and I offer to clean out people's bamboo groves. It's
That's
sometimes gotten
great.
me into problems because sometimes I get into a grove and there's absolutely nothing in it I can use, but out of a sense of honor, I'll do the work anyway. And people that ask for this type of thing generally need the help for wider reasons. So it doesn't hurt anything to do that. But sometimes I nail it really well. And I've had a couple of occasions where people had like an acre of bamboo and they're saying, well, can you clean this out for me? And there's absolutely nothing in it I can use. And so I say, well, I'll tell you what, I can do part of it because I really don't even have any use for it, but just to help you a bit, I'll do that. But I don't have
Mhm.
access to a backhoe. Anyway, so Craigslist through that. Typically, I bring like I get a trailer full, like a U-Haul medium-sized trailer, and really sort of back out of
Wow.
the process, and then take that back to my studio. That's where I'm at right now, and then it is hours of work just to separate it, size it, and then I store it for about a year. I got I guess it'd be called a root cellar, and it's right about average temperature because I'm in the middle of a rainforest here. It's usually about
Right.
60% humidity, so the stuff never really dries, and
Hmm.
but it does lower down to the ambient humidity, and it's just magnificent to work with after a while. Bamboo is very fussy, but like anything, you can learn its nature and then be able to work with it beyond that point.
So
So
that's
part,
interesting. So you can't use all bamboo. There's only like there's it's really specific as to the type of bamboo that's going to work for these brush handles.
that's correct. Some is too stiff, some is too small, some is way too big. There's a type of bamboo that's used literally for building houses in parts of the world, and
I've seen that.
nobody wants to have a brush that's
Yeah.
got that
I
size
was
of.
recently in Thailand back in March,
Yeah,
and I went to a sort of a sustainable community, and every hut, every little, I mean, it was so beautiful. Um, if I can find a picture, I'll try to insert it because the houses were built like out of the massive bamboo, but they used it for decorative things, like even cutting the bamboo in half and sort of making circles. And he made beautiful door panels and all this stuff out this bamboo. It was quite the thing, but so gorgeous. Very Robinson Crusoe like, this particular place. It was on the bay there. So I know what you mean about the really huge bamboo. You work with bamboo about this size.
up to yes, that's some of my XL
That's the
size,
largest. Mhm.
and it is that it's I love working with this stuff. I've gotten good at it over the years, and but it takes a lot of work. We were talking about the amount of work that we put into things that people don't know. It takes
Yeah.
literally 50 steps or more to make each one of these, and I have a mildly obsessive nature about what I do. So if I can produce a higher quality result, I don't have any problem in redesigning part of the brush, and then also part of it is redesigning the tooling. I was talking about the curve in this is the wangi to be able to drill it
Yes.
and
Yeah.
just to be able to flatten the stuff out. I went through, I think, 6 generations of different types of tools I had to use. In the past, this stuff was very inexpensive, and so I didn't mind if I tossed the stuff that was too curvy. But people like the curvy stuff,
I
and
like the curvy stuff. Oh my
everybody
God.
does. A lot of
It's
times I get
because it just
people.
hugs your hand so nicely, the curvy stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And most bamboo has a curve built into it, one degree or another. Here's another
Right.
cane. Pardon me. And but it takes a lot of work to do it. And like as I was saying, 6 generations just to get this so I could use more of it. Well, part of the reason I did so much work is that the cost for this stuff went up. This is not one that I sourced locally. This actually comes from Jakarta. And
Ah,
rhizome grows anywhere it's called running bamboo. And
right.
but not all of it is this strong. This is a really strong material. Some of it, if you try and sand it, it will just crumble, and so it's very, very
Wow.
fragile. Same
Wow.
thing with this. This also comes from Jakarta, where the story of getting this stuff, it's just unbelievable. And
Wow.
they have to dig it up and then meticulously clean all the dirt off of it. And do it without damaging the product. I get it with, I should pull one up, but when you see these have beards like I do, except not as gray. And
Oh, I like that. I don't think I have one like that.
that's
Have you started making those recently?
they've never been a very popular one. They're really labor intensive to make, so they're very expensive. And
Gosh, that's
so
gorgeous.
I
I like,
mostly
I
offer
like
them at
anything
shows.
wonky and wabi sabi. Those are
Right,
beautiful, just even for flat laid pictures. I love that.
right.
What
Well, this
I'll
is a,
do,
go ahead.
mhm.
I'm sorry.
No,
I was
no,
just
what
going
I
to
was
say,
gonna do, no, no, go ahead, finish. No, you finish. No, no, go ahead.
I apologize. There's a bit of a lag. I'm 25 miles out into the woods, and it's telephone poles between here and there, and so
No
there's a bit of
problem.
a lag on it. So anyway, this is one that I just started to make. It the bristle is a larger diameter silver fox, and the handle is
Oh,
they're amongst the rarest brushes that I make, and
oh,
I only have a few of them at this
after
point.
my heart.
I can make more, but the silver fox is a really nice brush.
Yeah, it is.
This is a smaller diameter version of the same thing.
I know I have some silver foxes here. What I'll do is I'll turn down to the table now so people can see the brush layout and what have you. And I'll start kind of working on one of my papers here. And I'll keep on asking you questions, but because I know that I love when you explain how the brushes are made and what makes them unique. I can tell you, even in the small one I have, I can honestly say I've never lost a hair out of this brush. And this brush is nearly 30 years old. I've I never can recall a time that I was painting with it and there was a hair stuck in the paint. And that happens commonly with a lot of brushes. So I'll come down to the table and let me just, okay.
There
And
we
then
go.
I'll show a little bit. I always like to show this part because I'm really proud of my brush collection. And then since working with Tracy, he sent me so many more beautiful brushes, and I'm forever indebted to him because I really really loved this product. So as I showed you guys, these were the first ones that I got, and many of you have seen me use this brush a lot. And then since then, I always keep them in this bag because I'll never remember which are which. Since then, I purchased over the years a number of other brushes from Keith when he was running the business. Um, what was this one? But these definitely. And they're just all such beautiful brushes, and I've used them so many different ways over the years. But so this is my collection from over the last several decades. And I even keep the little packaging. I was showing Tracy that earlier. I love that. So I've really been invested in these brushes over the course of time. And so I think what I'll do is I'll start doing some scripting and you can tell me, let's talk about how the brushes are made. And then you kind of know the layout I have down here. If it's a particular brush that you'd like for me to show, I can show the difference in how the strokes and the
Start with the ones that you use the most, and we can take it from there. I actually make over 200 different brushes. I haven't actually counted in a couple of years now. The silver fox brush I just showed with the rhizome handle is the latest iteration. And people contact me and they say, "Can you do this?" And I'm usually pretty good about doing that type of thing. And so I continue to expand the offerings.
yeah, this one
Probably
right here is the silver fox. This one here. So I have that one. And then I have the Russian sable.
sure.
Um,
So
go ahead.
thank you. Each brush is a one-of-a-kind creation. It is in part due to the nature of bamboo and in part due to the nature of the way I make them. Yeah, like I said, I don't buy, I source a lot of bamboo. I buy some of it, and then it sits for a year or longer before I actually start to do any significant work with it. And probably three-quarters of the work goes into making the brush handle, and then the remainder goes into making the brush bristle. Boy, you do that so well. And
Thank you.
when I was doing shows regularly, I started to do something like that, but not as fluid. But I did it upside down and backwards so I could do the alphabet so people could read it. And
I
part
love
of
it.
working with a brush is just it makes everything magic by its very nature. And the brushes, the comfort of them allow it to be much more comfortable in your hand. And there's a lot of subtleties built into it. But the other part that makes the brush one of a kind is that bamboo is basically a long tube with a tapering centerpiece in it. And that requires that I actually measure each piece of bamboo so I know what size the opening is. Then I have to very carefully make a bristle for each piece of bamboo. So it literally, there are no two that are exactly the same. And it is more than that, there is a fairly high failure rate. I just did a brush build of about 200 brushes that I assembled. Like I said, it takes me about 2 weeks to make the handles, and then probably another week to 2 weeks, depending upon the size of the build, to make the bristles for the handles. And everything goes along really well. And then the last step of the brush making, well, second to last step, is to make the bristle and glue the bristle and the brush handle together. And all that goes really well. The material I use, and going back to your comment about the longevity of the brushes, the material I use to glue them together is really a very powerful, very long-lived type of glue. And I have to wear a respirator and run fans, and it's not a place you'd want to be in unless you were very well protected from it. And but it's a superb material, and as a consequence of that, the brushes may shed a little bit when they're new. And of course, there is a thing called normal wear and tear, but typically speaking, bristles never fall out of my brushes unless I screwed up in some way. And in the last batch I did, I had, I think, let me think, I think 5 out of about 200 were messed up, and then I found a couple more. So when the glue goes into the bristle material, that causes the bristle to actually expand. And because I do things at such a tight fit, sometimes that expansion will cause the bristle, or not the bristle, but the handle to crack. So I had 2 of them that were damaged at the final stage of production, and you could just never know this before you do it.
No.
But the bigger point is that not every brush I start ends. I lose 10 to 15% of every build because of one problem or another. And then sometimes literally one drop too much of the bristle material or the glue material can turn a bristle into what amounts to an ice pick, because brushes work by what's called capillary action, which in short is that the materials are tightly squeezed together and liquid moves along the long side of how they're squeezed together. It literally pushes them out. Pardon me. And well, the problem is that the glue is subject to that very same force. And so it has been one of the hardest parts of the build is to use just the right amount of glue on it, and so that it glues the part of the bristle, but doesn't get into the bristle head. Part of what I do when I make them is that each brush bristle, literally, this is about 2.5 inches long. Half-inch long bristle at the tip. Here's an example of a half-inch long bristle with a Siberian elk. Or if it is, I don't have any of my really long ones, but if it's something like you have a large deer hair there, then literally there's anywhere between 2 inches and up to 5 inches overall length in the brushes. And that is all
like this one. I think this one is deer. So that would be a really long one.
Exactly. So that one would have more on the outside, but I still have probably 1 inch to 2 inches that are buried inside of it. Right.
Well, that would make sense why they don't just fall out, because they're so far in that they'd have to really work hard. Not to say that you wouldn't get some shedding. Let's say there's a few that are like anything, but I know over time of using them, I haven't had that problem. And I was, and I know what it feels like to work with them, and you're constantly picking them things. It's just ridiculous. So what I want to show is that I just did the Siberian elk, which is I wanted to show how when you lay it down and get the widest part of the brush, what that stroke looks like, so that you can see the differences, why it may be a small, a medium, mostly small and medium when you're doing a lot of brushwork, but large is for on larger pieces of paper. And then I had, so this one right here is the Siberian elk. If it wants to stay in place, doesn't. This one right here is the silver fox. And like you say, this is in the Wongi. So
Right.
that one is this way. And you can see how much wider that is. And it carries a lot of fluid all the way down to the tip a lot more easily. Because if you let this really sit and absorb, you're getting a lot. And then you come down to this tip. And that's just the nature of how the brushes are. And it also could be the way I might have loaded it and the way I may have been handling it. But you guys get the idea. And then this is the 1/2 inch.
It looks like an inch long version of a Russian sable to me.
Yeah, so this is the Russian sable. So this is an inch right here. So this would that still be considered the small? And then this is medium.
Yeah, the size is determined by the brush diameter, not the bristle length. And
Oh,
my smalls are generally speaking 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters. I have a line that I call itty bitties. They're like this. These are less than
yeah, I
two
have one of
millimeters.
those.
And then my mediums like this are up to 7 millimeters. And then the medium with a cane handle are around 5 millimeters. They vary because the bamboo comes in various sizes and I can't just throw away 90% of the bamboo.
So your small, medium, large is not related to the bristle length. It's related
Right,
to the size of the handle.
correct.
Oh, wow, I'm
And,
learning stuff. I didn't know that.
it's unobvious because most people that sell brushes don't do them that way. And you can get a small brush up to, let me think for a second, 2 inches long, and you can get a large brush, different brush, like my mountain goat hair brushes are the extreme example. Those go up to 5 inches long. The deer hair one that you just showed and my moose hair brushes are up to 3 inches long at the tip.
And what is this one right here?
That one is a large deer hair,
That's deer hair as well.
right?
Okay.
And they're really nice. They're used more by potters than by people that work with inks and watercolors, but
See,
they
I use
produce,
them for my large brush work
right, and they do really nice results, but you have to load them up pretty well. And
because I'm working on I'm like working on traditional papers that are, I'll show, um, like Gampi, Mitsumatsu, traditional Asian papers. They're like, I guess a lot of them are 26, 28 by 50 something long. So I need a lot of space to brush with it. Before I sort of show that as a brush making, so these lines were done by the Russian sable. And I just wanted to show people sort of the differences. So this is that track. This is that as well. Then this one, I'd use the Siberian elk here. And they look similar, but you'll see that to me, this is a tighter line and it's a little stiffer, like when you really want to have a little bit more control. And I always sort of suggest people kind of start off on not too stiff, but a slightly stiffer one because it helps get a little better results than sort of the brush moving around and you're not controlling it yet. So I think elk is a good one for that. But then look at how pretty the silver fox is. I think silver fox is good too for that, actually. But you see how much more absorbed. So you got a slightly thicker line because it's because of the quality of the hair, and also it's a little bit bigger, obviously, than this one. If you take a look at, there's more hairs and more stuff. And so even though it just gives a boldness and the swoop, like the fox, you get a really elegant movement of the line, I find. And I like the stray. I'll pick this up some. So I like how you get these stray lines with it, like when you curve in, you get these little extra bits. And I find the fox does that really nicely. Um, so I wanted to just kind of differentiate that so people could sort of see that every brush gives you something a little different. And so what I suggest is start with not too stiff, not too floppy as a way to begin the process. And what brushes would those be, Tracy?
well, you can never go wrong with the silver fox. They're just a superb brush. They're amongst the nicer brushes that I make. The Russian sable is a bit softer. Robin, you don't know it because you're you, but you're extremely fluent in what you do. Russian sable is kind of a finicky brush to use.
Yeah, it is finicky. It took me a long time to work on that
Oh, I
brush.
don't doubt that. It's superb, but it really takes a degree of control that not everybody has, at least not at first. You can definitely learn it. So the Siberian elk is very good. a brush that I only have a few of because it's very hard to get the materials called Kolinsky. Historically, Kolinsky is the most popular anywhere because it does everything right. And Siberian elk is very, very similar to that. And then I have another line that's called a goat and synthetic blend. And wanted to digress briefly back to our other topic. And part of the reason that my brushes hold a lot more material than other is specifically because most of them have a bristle length, even though you don't see it, that's upwards of 2.5 inches long. So I have
Right.
instructions on how to saturate the brush. Typically, you soak it under running water, ideally for about 20 seconds, and then that same capillary action will absorb water all the way to the back of the brush, and then add your color, and it's ready to go at that point. You don't have to do that, but you get the best results when you do that. Then the brushes just go and go and go, literally like no other, and you don't realize it because most of the rest of the world uses what's called a ferrule to separate the brush bristle from the handle. And that brings up the other point as to why my brushes come with a lifetime warranty for materials and workmanship, which I think I'm the only brush maker that does that. I don't use a ferrule on my brushes. The handle itself is that. And so it greatly reduces the stresses that the brush bristle is subject to. If you
Wow.
take a paper clip and bend it back and forth, it
Right.
doesn't take too long for the paper clip to break just because you're putting all that force in one
That
small
force on
spot.
it. So
And
even with this one, which is what the deer
yes,
hair, the really long one, this is how I work with this type of brush. And I worked in a more confined space, like I would even work in a much larger space. But I find that this brush particularly allows me to have a smaller handle, but yet get big strokes. And traditionally, and when you're doing a lot of larger brush work and what have you, you normally have a much more. So if you look at this one, you're normally going to have a handle that's almost that thick going all the way down, and maybe hairs that are twice that amount, right? That are long and sort of springy, or like horsehair or the deer hair. And I find that I like using this one for this type of work because I get a lot of expression. It holds a lot. You see, I feel that way. And like you said, I don't these brushes, I haven't run underwater, but I have a cup here and I keep on so I do saturate every brush before I put it down. So like Tracy says, it starts opening the brush up. And you always want to do that. But then when it absorbs the ink, it can go for a pretty long period of your stroke before you have to resupply it. So I wanted to show that before I moved it out the way.
right. And it also, deer hair and brushes that are typically, deer hair is very springy, but it's springy in a very subtle way, not in a way like a synthetic would be. So, and let me use that to jump to another point. I said before that I offer over 200 different brushes. I use, last I checked, 16 different, maybe 17 different bristle materials. And they range from very soft to very springy. And there's great pros and a few cons to each side. The brushes don't care so much how they're used, although if you're going to use something that uses solvents in it, particularly some of the stronger ones, I would lean
Yeah.
towards the synthetic bristles because they're just more resilient in general. And if you use something that is more viscous, generally speaking, the brush has to stand up to what it's working with. So you would then want to work with, oh, cool. You would then want to work with that is really nice, a stiffer brush for that, because if the brush is just going to flop around underneath the paint, it's obviously not the right thing. And
Right.
so that's the reason I offer them. When I was doing shows, it's easy to see from somebody's technique what's really easy to match up the technique to the brush that it works ideally. And we see the same thing. You can get a sense of what Robin does, and that allows you to see what type of bristle works for that particular set of techniques that the artist uses. And
So yeah, so let's talk about like let's say where people have never bought one of your brushes. I know some people will be viewing this that have, and I'm sure they're ready to move on to whatever the next one would be. And like I said earlier, you can call Tracy and can help you through it. But for people who have never used a brush and they kind of want to work like me, which brush would you suggest would be a great place for them to begin?
well, my most popular line is a blend of 90% goat hair and 10% synthetic fibers. That's this one. and I call it the goat and synthetic blend. I came
Okay.
up with the idea because goat hair, the world over, is the most popular. It works for holding material and delivering material just about as well as the best of sables do. What goat hair does not do is it doesn't have much of a spring to it. That's sometimes called a snap. And it also does not form a fine point. You can get goat
Mm.
hair with points, but they are harder to work on the point than a Russian sable is, which is saying something. And
Hmm.
so I came up, when I first started doing shows, I offered my goat hair brushes, and then I offered what's called my synthetic sable, which is a
Hmm.
very soft type of white colored synthetic. And it
I
has
think
one
I
of the
have that
finest
one right
tips.
here. I
Yeah,
have one of them here.
I think you do. That's the synthetic sable, and
Yeah.
it produces just a super fine point. So I got the idea that I can solve the problem with the goat hair and put the two together. I take literally my one and two most popular brushes put together, and
Hmm.
goat and synthetic ever since then has been just the runaway most popular brush. It's at a
So
lower
that would,
price point. It's more affordable. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Robin.
no, no, I was going to say, so, um, and what I'm doing right now, guys, is I'm working with the stencil, with the stamps from my kits, the two kits I introduced earlier. But one of the styles that I do is I do my calligraphy. I've done sort of finished art pieces. This is sort of how I worked in the book too, where I did the brushwork and then using mail art, so stamps, and using fauna, so a bit of like field notes. It's a style that I sort of developed for the Silk Road project that uses the combination of them. So I just wanted to sort of show you guys what I was doing here. Um, but so how should we do this, Tracy? Like when we're done filming this, maybe you could send me links of several of the brushes you would recommend, and then I'll put them under in the description so people will be able to go below and see the description. So they have a place to start and begin to click to come to your page. Because one thing about your page, you like to you, it's like how I do. I'm like so entrenched in my work that I can talk about things and it just seems simple to me. But then people are like, whoa, 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 wait, stop, back up and tell me. So, like, if we give them a place to start of some of the ones we would recommend, like you were talking about, then that gives them a chance to go over your site and see other things, but at least they know, okay, we can focus in on this. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Do you agree?
I do agree, and I think the best place for somebody to start would be, and I'll send a link directly to it, but I have the two pages that go to the brushes you like to use. It's called Robin's Favorite Brushes, and it would be the best possible place to start because those that follow your extraordinarily talented work would be more, it's easier if they use the same types of brushes to develop the techniques. And I'm trying to expand that, but like everything, it's just becomes a very large, not over years because we've got that covered pretty well, but um, it becomes a very large project on top of an even
No, trust
material
me, I
project.
understand. I just went through revamping my entire website and because I added
So
another one on for some of the other stuff that I'm working on.
I don't envy you that. I just had to move mine. That's another story. I won't go into it right
I
now.
look, I understand. So I'm going to just follow up with something I like to do where I like to double stamp. Now I'm getting ready to use a Sumi ink that's a little bit oil based, and I really like these. But as soon as because I'm very protective of these brushes, so as soon as I'm finished with it, I put this in water so that it can start, so I don't have to worry about this ink sticking on it.
Yeah,
So
that's the way to do it.
if you're just using inks, you don't have to really worry about it. You can clean them when you're finished your projects. But if you're using any kind of paints, acrylics, anything, you definitely want to put your inks in your brushes in some water. Have some like small receptacle next to you so that because like this one I'm going to just go ahead and dump it in there because I don't want it to get until I can go clean it. And I clean it with just I clean it with I normally clean it with shampoo to be honest because to me they're hair and I want to make sure that it's not too drastic of a product to just just be too harsh on the brushes. So I like to double stamp so you sort of get that drop
That comes
look
out
to
so
it.
nice.
And it just, just adds to it. But would you say that what do you recommend to clean them with, Tracy?
Well, with every order, I offer instructions on cleaning them, and it's whatever is suitable for the paint that you happen to be working with. Generally speaking, I too recommend shampoo. It is literally the state of the science for hair care. And while hairs are vastly different overall in the general sense, what cleans one will clean just about all of them. And soap is very mild, so it's not going to put wear and tear on it.
Right. That's what
With
I
that,
felt. And they
with
stay
that,
soft too. They like they're
absolutely.
like the way your hair is when you use good shampoo. And I'm just going to put this on. So okay, so you do yeah, and everybody has shampoo. So it's like the easy, you don't have to go out and buy a different product for caring for your
Yeah,
brush.
exactly. That's the beauty of it, and it isn't overkill. I paint every one of my brushes by hand, not the fine texture, that's the bamboo, but on the ends of them, and then on the wingy ones, I put some small patterning on them, and
Hmm.
I use a very well, it's a wood stain, literally, and so it takes I use a painter's thinner to clean them, and the brushes are designed to stand up to harsher chemicals to the degree that the hair is, but most hair is pretty resilient. Um,
Right.
the most wear and tear, which isn't a lot, but it comes from people that work in pottery. And that's not surprising because pottery is basically ground stone on its base, and then you use anything between ground metal and ground glass to color it or paint it, as the case may be. There's not much more
Hmm.
of a harsh environment than that. And the brushes will all stand up to that within reason. You can't put a feather in the line of a fireplace and have it survive the fire. So there is a thing called wear and tear, but they stand up
For
really well.
sure.
I get it's so rare that I get any type of returns. Every now and then I'll send out a brush that develops a crack. It's bamboo. It's part of the reason I offer the lifetime warranty. But
Hmm.
generally speaking, it just doesn't happen. I've been offering my brushes now since, let me think for a minute. I think it was 2016, 2017. I started to offer
Yeah.
my brushes. I receive on average less than 5 back a year. And
I can imagine because I even have one of my favorite brushes, and maybe because it is my favorite brush, one of, among them. But one of them, like this one, has a little crack there, but it has never gotten in the way of like the integrity of the brush. I mean, the brush still works beautifully, and I'm so into wabi sabi that I feel like I like that because it's like showing my use, but it's never affected the use of the brush. So I think it would have to be extreme circumstances of the cracking that maybe would interrupt the
yeah,
use of the brush.
well, I agree. The brushes are, in the first place, they're all permanently sealed on both the front and the back end. That's part of the build process I use. So they're
Mhm.
literally bound together from the inside. And so a crack may happen. If it affects the way the brush works, I don't have any problem with it. If somebody's just unhappy with it, I don't have any problem with it. But it's part of why I offer the warranty I do. I realize that bamboo does that, and I would rather, my brushes are not inexpensive. And so I would rather have the customer be happy than have them go, I paid all this and it did this. And so there's on the other
Yeah, and
hand,
that's what I love about you and your business model. And I think that's what going back to supporting people, with small businesses and people who have a passion, because nowadays you don't get any of that out of the big stores. Oh my goodness, you have to fight tooth and nail to get something back when they say you're going to have a guarantee to get it back. So let's see. We've probably been going for a good while now. I just wanted to I wanted to, like sort of work and show how everything you guys we all already have stamps and stencils and stuff, but I just kind of wanted to show, well, of course this is my style, but how you can just integrate and do such a beautiful thing, and when you're done it looks like it has a really nice original look to it. It doesn't look like you use stamps, and a lot of it has to do with the quality of the brush and of course the quality of the stamps, but anyway, so the way these things are designed. So I think we probably should go ahead and wrap up, but let's talk about what the special is. You want to share that out, Tracy?
yeah, thank you
And if
for
there's
asking.
anything else you want to share as well, of course.
Well, a couple of things. I have another question for you that I forgot to ask you earlier.
Sure.
First, I have a promotion running through the end of the year. It's 20% off on the brushes. And my only request is order sooner, if at all possible. I'm one person. I do everything related to my brushes, and my order volume goes up many, many times over normal
This time of
between
year.
now and the end of the year, and through January, they tend to be the busiest times for me. So give me time to work, and I will definitely get them out. If there's something surprising that comes up, I will let you know about it. And then, so use the coupon word Robin, Robyn, for the discount on them. And it applies to all
Is
the
it just
brushes.
Robin and no amount, just Robin?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
And it doesn't matter what case it's in. It could be lower, upper, it's just Robin.
completely correct, yes.
Okay, perfect.
And then if you want to contact me, the best way is through email. I get so many phone calls. I've unfortunately had to give up on doing that because every time I pick up the phone, it's at least a half an hour to an hour talking with somebody. I
Yeah,
love to talk to people, so I
I
really
know you
enjoy
do. I
it.
know what that feels like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a normal part of what we do, and but it just takes up so much time. I can either talk on the phone or I can actually get work done, and so I
Which one?
restrict it to email, right? And the workload is endless. So um, there is that. So that email address is it's at the top of my webpage, if I remember correctly. It's info at lebenzon-paintbrushes.com. And if in doubt, you can just type my name, Tracy, Tracy, and handmade brushes, and you'll find my webpage. But
And
it's
I'll make sure I
Lebenzon.
link that in the video description so people can go and find a link as well.
Yeah, for some odd reason, people have the hardest time spelling Lebenzon. You wouldn't know that, but I get a listing of all the misspellings of it, and so
I can
I kind of
imagine. I get from McClendon, I get every
it's the
variation
same thing,
of
exactly
the
the same
spelling
thing.
except for the spelling that it is.
And right, and also you reminded me, and I forgot to ask you before, but you mentioned that you have an email list yourself. What is that email address, or where do you sign up for that?
It would be at robinmcclendon.com. And
Okay, so
then there is, I just shifted websites and there's a contact area there where you can sign up for the email. So right now it might not be completely up, but if you contact me and I'll make sure that I'm still in the development stages, although it's live. But generally, with my old website, you just hit robinmcclendon.com and then it would take you to my email list. But I can also be reached at info@robinmcclendon too, and then we can send you the link for getting on the list. So either way, till I get the site completely done.
terrific, thank you. Yeah, I normally interact with your videos on YouTube, and I only occasionally look at the wider world. It's one of the ironically myopic things when I do listings for people that help promote the brushes. I try and point out everywhere they go because most
Yeah.
people, it's the way we do. You drive down a road, and most myself talking about myself, you don't think, what's beyond those trees? It's like the rest of the world is over there, but you don't think
Yeah,
about it because you're
exactly.
thinking about where you want to go and not what's
Exactly.
over on the side. Same thing when you're watching somebody on a video source, or if you come across them on Instagram, you may think it's the only place that they show up.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
cool. Well,
Exactly.
thank you so much for sharing that.
No,
And
definitely. Well, thank you so much for, like hanging out with me. I know you and I chat back and forth frequently and send emails and what have you. And I really wanted to have you on the channel again because I really just love your brushes. And I know so many people when they really get to see the quality of them and everything, when you think about the price of them, they're more expensive than the regular brush. But when you get to cost per use, I mean, that one brush that I've been using for 30 years, this is probably down to being worth a quarter of a penny. I mean, I've used it so much. So, I prefer to have things I can have use and have longevity and I can depend upon it than to have a lot of inexpensive and cheaper things because they honestly just don't. They're just not worth your time. So think about it like that. And since Tracy was offering the 20% off, I thought that was a fantastic time to get them because that's a big savings on these brushes. So jump in. Like you said, you can go to my page. You can think about what we're using here today. You can reach out to him by email and tell him what you're looking for or where you are in the project. Maybe you are, in the process. I mean, maybe you've already gotten several brushes and trying to figure out which other way to go. So yeah, but definitely jump in. And this is, you said till the end of the year?
yes,
Okay. So yeah, get in there and get yourself a couple of Christmas gifts. And yeah, and just enjoy this process. So I think that's everything. Is anything else you want to share with us at all, Tracy?
No, I'm good. Robin, thank you so much for your time. It's really an honor to be able to get to spend some time with you on air. You're such an
And
amazing
likewise,
artist,
I always enjoy when we get together. So yeah.
as do I. And I'm hugely appreciative. And also your willingness to show off the brushes. I know that you became a friend of Keith's long ago,
Yeah.
and he was obviously a big influence in my life. I literally devoted my second career to doing the same type of things he did because we used to talk about them long ago, and it just sounded like so much fun, and it really
Yeah.
is.
I
And I
can
think
imagine. I'm sure I would have seen it the exact same way if that were my cousin. I would be right there with him. All right, everyone. Well, any questions you have, you can put it down in the comments. You can reach out to me at info@robinmcclendon.com. You can reach out to Tracy at info at Tracy just
Lebenzon-paintbrushes.com.
at lebazon-paintbrushes.com. And I'll put all that below. But thank you guys for hanging out with us. And hopefully you got some inspiration as well for what you can do with all your stamps and brushes and things you already have. And yeah, so it's really cool. So we'll look to see you guys soon. Bye bye.
You're the best. Thank you.